They stood in rows beneath the silver obelisks, heads bowed, arms crossed to bare their necks. The great horns of Urudel sang out through the smoky sky, and the Dven people chanted in sync, measured, precise, reverent. Their voices were hollow, obedient. For 10,000 cycles, this had been their way. The gods, if that's what they were, descended in ships shaped like spears, cloaked in thunder, cloaked in silence. They spoke in cold light and gave the Dven 3 commandments: order, obedience, and silence. The Dven obeyed, not out of devotion, but because their ancestors had seen what happened when they didn't. The gods called it cleansing, so the Dven stopped dancing. They stopped singing. They built temples in silence, farms without laughter, cities without color. No music, no celebration, no rebellion, only bowed heads and still hands. They told their children not to dream. Dreaming was disorder. Not to ask why. Questions invited cleansing. And then the humans came. We didn't descend in fire. We didn't shout proclamations. We stumbled in, curious, wide-eyed, lugging instruments and camera drones, tripping over sacred stones, waving like fools. At first, the Dven stared in horror. We wore red. We talked too much. We laughed with our eyes and mouths and shoulders. We pointed at the stone altars and asked, "Do you dance here?" They answered, "We kneel." We blinked and said, "But it's got such great acoustics." They didn't understand us. Not at first. Especially when Jenna Alvarez started playing violin under the obelisk of suppression. She didn't ask permission. She just sat cross-legged beneath the towering monolith, opened her weather-worn case, and started to play, notes sharp as rebellion, soft as sunrise. It wasn't loud, but it spread like a crack across still ice. The priests tried to stop her. A boy stopped them. He stepped out from the crowd, small, barely 12. Eyes wide with something that wasn't fear. Hope. "I want to hear more," he said. The priest hissed that it was forbidden, that the gods demanded silence. "But it's beautiful," the boy whispered. He was taken. The music stopped. Jenna was warned. The council debated expelling all humans from Dven territory. But the next morning, 2 more Dven children came to the edge of the compound. They had made instruments. Primitive. Strings tied across ceramic bowls. Flutes carved from hollowed bone. They didn't speak. They just held them up and waited. Jenna sat. She played. So did they. Offbeat. Off-key. Glorious. It spread. Quietly, stubbornly. A gardener hummed while planting roots. A pilot tapped rhythm against his console. A cook sang to simmering stew, unaware his lullaby echoed through a vent and into the dorms of 500 sleeping workers. Each sound chipped at the silence. And then came the festival. Humans didn't mean it as protest. It was just Earth Day. We'd held it on every planet we'd colonized. We thought we'd be alone in the courtyard, an impromptu thing. Guitars, laughter, bread shared on old blankets. Someone taught salsa. Someone else lit paper lanterns. It should have been a footnote. But the Dven came. At first they watched from the shadows, wrapped in gray. Then one stepped forward. Then another. A woman reached out and touched a lantern. A boy clapped, once, then again. Rhythm. Laughter. One of them asked, "What is this ritual?" Jenna smiled. "It's not a ritual. It's a celebration." Of what? Of everything. The next day, the cleansing ships arrived. The gods, tall, eyeless, faceless things of bone light and humming metal, descended with warning. Obedience had wavered. Order had been corrupted. Silence broken. The Dven trembled. Old instinct clawed through them. They knelt. They closed their eyes. But one didn't. It was the boy. The same one who had spoken for music. He stood. And he danced. Awkwardly. Clumsily. Joyfully. The gods raised their arms. But before they could strike, Jenna stepped forward. And she danced too. Then another human. And another. Then a gardener. Then a priest. And then the entire plaza moved. The gods bellowed, soundless rage in the minds of every living being. But the Dven didn't stop. Their feet moved. Their hips swayed. They formed circles, held hands. One woman, elderly, silent her whole life, sang. Not a hymn. A lullaby. The gods lifted into the sky. They did not cleanse. They did not return. They were not gods. They were machines, bound to the minds of those who obeyed. Minds that had finally slipped the leash. The Dven have not knelt since. They still honor the old days, not with fear, but remembrance. And now, every spring, they host a celebration on the steps of the obelisk of suppression. They call it the asking. Each person, young, old, Dven, human, steps onto the stones and asks the same question. Will you dance with me? And across the square, voices rise. Yes,